I'm Edward Warfield, the publisher of Citybiz, and I'm honored today to interview Zack Usilton, who is the Chief Development Officer at SENTA. Welcome, Zack.
Thanks, Edwin. Glad to be here.
As Chief Development Officer, what are your responsibilities at SENTA?
At the core, the responsibilities for myself and the team that works with me every day are mergers and acquisitions, and in particular, partnering with physician groups. And within that, it's a front-to-end effort of sourcing, working through the negotiating points that are important to both sides, and all the way through integrations with our practice partners. But I think beneath that, there's really two other core responsibilities that we try to aim to achieve every day. And I certainly do in my role as Chief Development Officer. The first of that is to be a collaborative leader and to ensure that I'm working with all of the functional departments inside of SENTA's walls to ensure that we're servicing our physician and patient needs every day. And that takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of sharing of ideas and problem solving that allows us to be the best partner that we can be. And the second part of that is thinking through and cultivating strategic growth for our partners. That process begins very early in some of those sourcing discussions, and it manifests itself well after I step out and my team steps out of partnering with groups. But we're laying that groundwork and thinking creatively about the mutually beneficial strategic initiatives that we can invest in as SENTA on the practice's behalf.
And can you provide a snapshot of SENTA?
Yeah, so SENTA stands for Southern ENT and Allergy. And we are a management services organization that's backed by private equity, focusing on the clinical specialties of otolaryngology, which is ear, nose, and throat, and allergy, asthma, and immunology. And that has allowed us to find creative opportunities to have clinical partnerships across specialties. Now, we are currently operating in 5 states. So SENTA is southern in its nature. And so right now our partnerships are in Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Texas. However, we have ongoing discussions on, the edges of what the South may be defined as. It's not a very strict framework in that regard. And right now we have, across all clinical provider lanes, I think more than 125 clinical providers that we work with.
And why do practices partner with SENTA?
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept because as I think about that question, engaging with these practices, it's such a tailor-made answer, right? Our goal is to identify the why for physician groups, not just pain points, but opportunities that they're interested in, and really craft a partnership that leans in and out of those areas. But I think in any engagement that we are privileged enough to have, there are a couple of core factors, maybe 5 overall, that I would say continuously stand out. I think the first of those is the fact that we're a physician-led organization and that our private equity partner, Shore Capital, has a track record of being a really physician-friendly private equity group, including receiving awards just to that end. We actually prove that out through a number of measures. 3 come to mind. The first is that our board of directors is heavily weighted towards physician participation and membership. That allows us to ensure that clinical voice is always present in the decisions that we're making. We have a clinical advisory board that is more focused on day-to-day and practice-to-practice engagements. And so that obviously is another layer of that. But the third piece is probably the one that stands out the most from the feedback I receive, which is our model of being a mutual decision-making organization and understanding that there is no SENTA without our physician partners. We don't exist without them. And I think that allows us to really provide a unique perspective for practices. But we have to be able to act in ways that produce value. And so those areas for me that stand out are first and foremost that we have a proven operational model now, right? We were the first group in private equity to partner with ENT. Allergy is a little more developed. We're the first to do it together, and we've now proven our ability to stretch and execute that can tell a unique story. We're able to really provide a lot of financial flexibility. And what I mean specifically by that is that, yes, there's liquidity that comes with a partnership like this, but financial opportunity is so much more than that. And so what we try to think about in that lane are options on succession planning for practices, which is really hard to do. We try to think about that through a lane of risk mitigation, right? We're in a very choppy space right now. What does that mean for practices still stung by COVID and trying to stabilize what the future looks like? That optionality stands out for us. But I think the last piece of that is really that our model is the closest thing, in my view, to maintaining the feel of private practice. You keep your brand, you keep your autonomy, you keep your referral sources. You're not wearing SENTA badges and scrubs when you're in the OR, right? And so while we're back supporting and helping create efficiencies and investments, really at the end of the day, you just have a partner. And we're not coming in to remove what it feels like to be a private clinician.
And so SENTA recently expanded into North Carolina. Tell us about that expansion and tell us what is the footprint of SENTA today?
Sure, I'll start with that second part. So our footprint is still core in the southern geography. So Virginia, both Carolinas, Georgia, and Texas, obviously close in talking to groups in other states. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But in North Carolina, we found a really unique opportunity to partner with a group that has a wonderful clinical reputation, but also had a really business-oriented mindset. And that was ENT Carolina. ENT Carolina has served the Gastonia and Shelby community for decades and provided patient access that didn't exist outside of their group. And at the same time, they recognized that to be their best selves, they needed a multi-year growth plan. And we were the right partner to come in and help them execute on that. And so I'm proud to say after a year, in addition to executing on a lot of the clinical initiatives of improving their patient care that they are excited about, we've been able to execute on their growth strategy. So we've recently opened up in the Belmont community, which didn't really have access like this. So patients can now be closer to their doors when seeking care. And have also opened up a walk-in clinic in the Gastonia market, allowing patients more flexibility in their challenging days to seek some of the care that they get. And we're really proud of the partnership we have there and who ENT Carolina is and how we can continue to service the West Charlotte area.
Tell us about your career and the decision to join SENTA.
Yeah, my career has really had three phases. And I'd like to say I was brilliant and saw the connectivity that would occur from the beginning, but I didn't. And I've been really blessed that they have all kind of built on each other in unique ways I didn't expect. I started my career in commercial real estate and really investing all of my time each day and working with high growth and sophisticated office tenants and investors in ways to create strategic plans for what their office needs may be on a multi-year basis. That really allowed me a unique skill set to both engage with sophisticated leaders, problem solve with external entities, and to think uniquely about what multi-year needs may be. That may sound familiar from how I just described what we are doing with ENT Carolina and their model, right? But that was decades ago, and I didn't obviously foresee that. But it was a tremendous start for me. And at the same time, the second shift in my career, the first shift really started during the financial crisis. I was still very young in my career and in a commercial real estate business that was just annihilated during that period. So while still working, I decided to reinvest in myself and went back to business school at Emory University here in Atlanta in the evenings. And my goal was to enhance my skills in the field of commercial real estate to come out stronger on the upside of the market. But what I found was that there was a strategic itch that I was not scratching every day that became very intriguing to me. And I thought that would be in the lane of consulting, a very business school oriented type of story. And it just so happened there was a bit of serendipity where someone I knew well came to me and said, I get you're on that path. There's some unique things in healthcare that could be really appealing for a long-term career. And there's a leadership development program for post-MBAs at a really well thought of company called DaVita Kidney Care, which is the largest kidney care organization in the world. And so it just so happened that they were recruiting within a few weeks of that conversation on Emory's campus. And I was blown away by the culture, the investment in my capabilities. And Emory had just had their first ever class with the School of Public Health on the business of healthcare. So I spoke about serendipity. These things all manifested themselves in me taking that leap. And after spending almost a decade at DaVita, I got the chance to run operations for 16 clinics and see some intense patient care for really sick patients and how to serve them and their families. I was able to run corporate development for about $1 billion market in the South of existing DaVita facilities, and to figure out how to grow that and partner with physicians. And ultimately was also running integrations nationally for acquisitions. And that was a tremendous time in my life. There were so many learnings I had there, but I got the sense that it was time for me to start to find a way to find a career that was going to allow me to kind of mold the clay a bit more with my own hands. I was a Fortune 250 company. And that's when I found SENTA. I had a lot of different healthcare private equity groups that I spoke to and opportunities afforded to me. But what blew me away about SENTA was that even in their young stage, that there was the culture, the leadership capability, the now proven partnership track record, and a proven partner in Shore Capital that had high integrity and reputation amongst physicians in the healthcare field. And I found through almost a year and a half now that all of the things that stood out to me have been extremely true and have exceeded those expectations. And that's made this third career one that excites me probably than any other so far.
And so what are the growth plans for SENTA? Are you expanding regionally? Tell us what's on the dock.
I would say the last 6 months have been as intriguing a period as I've ever had in my career. And what I mean by that is that, you're at this constant cross-section economically of headwinds and tailwinds, and they're changing every day. They're changing with every conversation. Everyone's just uneasy, not uncomfortable, but uneasy as to which direction headwind or tailwind is going to become more constant. And I think through that, we actually remain quite ambitious in what our growth plans can be for 2023 and beyond. So I anticipate us through the balance of this year, expanding our geographic footprint into new states. Those opportunities are right here at our doorstep right now, and expanding through density in markets that we are already in, whether that's existing states or even existing metro areas like the Charlotte one that we were talking about earlier. And I think we've been lucky to have the progression of growth to this stage that'll award us the opportunity to navigate through some of the challenging factors in capital markets that may have been a lot harder were we a much younger organization. So we'll keep that path. We'll keep our focus on finding great clinical reputation physician practices within that geographic footprint, and continue to also build our pipeline for the next phase, hopefully, of our growth, which allows us to have a little more geographic stretch and bring what we think is a great model to more and more physicians and patients here in the U.S.
Is there any part of the Zack story or the SENTA story that you haven't shared with us that you'd like to share?
I'll hold on to some of the Zack stories, other than to say that, I think that we have a really wonderful culture that we continue to develop. I'm glad that I'm part of that story, is where I kind of think about responding to that question. And it's exactly what I was hoping I would find in terms of putting my hands in the clay. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by wonderful leadership that's super supportive on that journey, and people that work with us that are embracing that culture, both within SENTA's walls and in our clinical locations. But in terms of the SENTA story, what I would share is just the flexibility that we try to lean into each day of meeting the needs of our partners. It's really easy, I think, in private equity or in any business lane where you're a bit removed from physically being where your business partners are, to not think clearly about how their day works and the challenges that they face. And what I think is unique about the SENTA story is that from the beginning up until the moment we're sitting in right now, our discussions, our planning, our efforts are around what those needs are on an individual and practice base. And I think as long as we keep our eye on that true north, as long as we keep the focus on that we don't have the ability to be successful without our partners, we're going to be tremendously lucky for the path that we have in the future.
Well, Zach, I want to thank you for your time and telling us, sharing the Zach and SENTA story. We wish you the best of luck going forward.
Edwin, it's been such a pleasure. We're at a moment in time that is unique for ENT and allergy, and we're excited to be at the forefront of it. So thank you for the opportunity to share our story and share my story.